Yeah, that's like a universal
I think
dislike.
everyone knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Michael Porter Jr.
Welcome to Spinsters, a podcast where we would never blow a 3-0 lead. I'm Jordan. That's Haley. Couple housekeeping things before we get into it. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube. It's a great place. Fun things are happening there. Don't miss out. And keep sending us your emails. We love them. We love reading them. We love working through your issues with you. Maybe not love, but we'll try our best. After the break, we have Sarah Spain.
Okay, cool. So let's start with your Chicago Bulls. Very exciting season. I would say that probably a vibe shift has occurred. On Wednesday, they play game 5. Milwaukee currently leads 3-1. Sarah, as a Bulls fan, how are you feeling right now?
I'm going to need them to go out with a little bit more pride and self-respect if this is the end of the road, because this was a super fun season. And I'm telling you, this has been a fan base that, with the exception of a couple peak seasons with Derrick Rose and the bench mob and some, excitement around Joakim Noah and some players that, really got us hyped, it's been a very long post Michael Jordan hangover in this city. That high was so high that coming anywhere near it is pretty much impossible. But being completely middling for so much of the decades since then has been really tough for such a basketball crazy city, for a city that was, like, in my case, raised on Jordan and the 90s Bulls. So getting a new front office, getting rid of Garpax, and having faith in the people who are running the show now was huge. And I was really excited for the DeMar DeRozan acquisition when it happened. Meanwhile, other quote unquote experts said it was the worst signing of the offseason. Okay, well, he went on to be an MVP candidate for much of the season and completely elevated this team. And the mesh with Zach LaVine has been spectacular. I think there were a lot of people questioning their run early when they were sitting around 1, 2, 3. And then injuries just completely wiped out what was a really consistent night in and night out groove, where you had Caruso and Ball patrolling the perimeter in such a way that they disrupted teams before they could even set up a half-court offense, and that prevented Vooch from being exposed inside. We knew that was going to be the biggest issue with this team, is needing a better, stronger big defensively, especially against teams like the Bucks with Giannis. And with Ball out and Caruso just coming back, that was how they got exposed for much of the end of the season when they were really struggling. And so I would say it's been up and down, but for the most part, been really up. Like, to enjoy an entire Bulls season and to be really excited and to have them in the playoffs is more than we expected. I just am going to need it not to be blowout, a third straight Grayson Allen playoff career high to end the season, because that will put a sour taste in my mouth after such a fun year, because Grayson Allen cannot be the person that puts you to sleep. Anybody, Giannis, great, fine, nice guy, superstar. Grayson Allen is a middling backup who's dirty, and he does not deserve to put this team to bed.
Did you guys hear that he was, like, having the bench boo him, and that was, like, fueling him to play
his own
more?
Bench?
His own bench. He asked them to boo him.
Could you
like,
be
he's
more
that
of a
guy.
hack? Oh my God, what a hack. I can't with this guy. I literally talked about this on my radio show, and I asked, because Grayson Allen to me is the number one person I least would want to see beat my team with a great game. Because he's the one who cheap shotted Caruso and took him out for months. He's the one who's got this just slimy, dirty reputation. And there are just certain people. Like, my Bears always lose to Aaron Rodgers. It just happens. It happens so often now that I am numb to the pain. I can't be that upset about it. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. But Grayson Allen, it's like a combination of the character of the human being and the quality of the play. That person cannot be the one that shows out. Like, And yeah,
anyone else.
We got some good answers for like the person you least want. And it's usually the one that has that like reputation for being a little slimy.
Who else was on the list? Who else was in contention?
Some Reggie Miller, some Scott Rowland in baseball, a lot of Tom Brady, Sophie Cunningham, which for WNBA fans, spot on. I was like, shut it down. You just answered the question.
that wins.
That's a good
perfect answer.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, I've never had to watch her do my team dirty. And she's always on the ground with Kalia Copper staring her down and showing her who's in charge here, and then leading team to victory. So I've never had to witness that.
That was a win for mankind. Yeah.
Yeah, that really
was.
We all won when KFC took her down and turned it into t-shirts. Yeah.
That was the right side of history. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think the problem with like a Tom Brady or like you were saying Aaron Rodgers earlier, some of the other examples, I really got nothing on the baseball one. I was going to Google it and then I thought just stay true to yourself. Is that Tom Brady is great.
Yes.
He's going to go down in history
feel the
as
same
the top.
to me.
No, it just doesn't.
No.
The thing is that Grayson Allen has this reputation for playing dirty. I think that's where we can put him in sync with like a Reggie Miller, who you don't want to lose to because of the
attitude,
whining, the attitude. Yeah, everything kind of just puts you off a little bit. He doesn't seem like he's definitely seemed like one of those guys who, if he was on your team, you adored him.
That's exactly what I said last night.
Patrick Beverly, you know what I mean? You hate him.
I said it's the guys that you love to have on your team and hate to play against are the number one answer to this question.
But like I don't think anyone wants
when Joe and Noah was like in the MVP conversation, the other teams were like, this guy. Like, yeah. So it's like it's the one that you love when they're riling up the other team for your benefit and you absolutely despise when you're playing them.
The likeness to Ted Cruz does not help either. Even if Grayson Allen was lovely, which he isn't, you can't look like a whore. You know, you got to change something up.
I would go with at least like a shaved head or something.
Yeah, you got to change the hair.
Mustache. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't fix that face. Like if you have Ted Cruz face, ooh, I saw what you did there.
Yeah, a little curly mustache.
A little pencil thin mustache.
Yeah.
I don't know though, because then he would look like the dudes in like those remember those like silent melodrama plays where someone like and he would look like the guy that would always come on stage and you'd be like, boo.
Yeah, he
like,
would.
He has that
like
face
the villain.
too. Or like the guy that always had the little barbell and like the striped one, like wrestling
onesie.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a generationally villain face. Like, you know, in the 20s, he was the one tying the woman to the railroad in the
100%
silent movies. Yeah, he is the villainous face. My solution, Grayson Allen, let's turn this into let's make this a workshop. How do you fix this if you're Grayson Allen?
Right.
I would say just physically stop tripping and hurting people, but also physically what you can control, because that might be involuntary at this point. I don't know what happened to him to make him so prone to do that. I say grow out the hair.
I was gonna say, you know, Ted Cruz had a failed effort at a beard. So he might just end up looking like Ted Cruz with a beard, but there is a chance that his beard grows in so differently from Ted Cruz's that this is the thing that can send him away from the. I would try it, but maybe he can't grow facial hair. He also strikes me as someone who's like not quite done with puberty.
I'm with you with the long hair and then turn it into like a man bun. That won't help it, but it will distance yourself away from Ted Cruz a little bit, which is what you want to do.
You somehow just took a punchable face on a hateable person, and then you offered up, here's how he can get better, is a man bun. In terms of like the slander coming his way, I don't know if that's going to do it for him.
Harry, can you Photoshop that? Is that possible? Can we get a visual? I have another question just apart from Grayson Allen, because every time that we talk about him, it takes me back to when he tried to hurt multiple Louisville players in college. So long-standing thing, we all know this. Do you think that a tide has turned, I think that's the saying, despite the fact that maybe this playoffs isn't going to go great? unless something miraculous happens. Do you feel like this is the beginning of something new, or this was just another like, okay, Chicago had a very interesting portion of the season and nothing actually came out of it? Do you think that Zach and DeMar is the start of something that they can build off of?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly concern that we're at the peak for DeMar and that there could be a drop off. I think at least another couple of years he could be right around this level. I think you need, first of all, a dominant big. What we've seen across the NBA actually this year I've liked is the idea that you don't just throw some superstars together and then that's the success. You need to have a well-constructed roster. And I appreciate that, especially at Chicago, because we've had a lot of trouble getting that superstar player to choose to come to the Bulls. And knowing that you can't just throw together a Durant, a Harden, and a Kyrie, and there you have it. Understanding that we're looking at some teams, even like the Pelicans, who are putting together just a really good roster of talent and winning games by playing smart basketball. That makes me feel a little better, because I think if you have DeMar and Zach, and then you have a healthy Ball who picks up the slack that they need right now that they're missing in terms of 3-point shooting, you've still got Patrick, like, who's completely getting better and like showing the progress early in his career and has spent some time out for injury. So you give him that too. You've still got, the pieces. You just need to add that dominant big to offset what you have with Zach and DeMar. I still don't know if you're going to be able to beat the best teams, but if you look across the NBA, there is incredible parity now. In the East, all year, it was like the top 5 are kind of all pretty close to each other. There wasn't a guarantee for any of them. On the West, it felt like the Suns start to finish, but with Booker now injured, they're looking, a little bit risky. The Grizzlies, even, like, as much as you could say the Timberwolves were an underseeded play-in team because they had found their way closer to the end of the season, you don't expect the Grizzlies to have so much trouble with a play-in team. And this shouldn't be like that. So I think there's some real hope for the Bulls if they get that big centerpiece, literally centerpiece, to be the start of something. But your window's only so long. I think they're going to have to sign Zach to the Supermax, and I think he'll take it because he'll make about $50 million more from the Bulls than he would on a 4-year max somewhere else. And I think he likes it and wants to stay. And then you put the pieces around. And I also just think the biggest change is the front office. Getting rid of Garpax, bringing in a coach you believe in, bringing in a GM who's making the moves you believe in, and taking a big swing like they did this offseason, acquiring as many players as they did, that makes me much more hopeful than for the future, even if they get bounced by the Bucks, which is, honestly acceptable. They're the defending champs. They have Giannis. Yeah. They're a good team. Right. It's not an embarrassing first round exit, unless, of course, they get blown out for a third straight game and Grayson Allen has another good game. Then it is embarrassing, and I will be angry for the offseason.
Yeah, because I was thinking that, excuse me, I was rooting for the Bulls all year. I was rooting for them into this playoffs. I felt like they had a chance against the Bulls, but especially in that last game, sometimes, and I feel like this is very like plain speak, but sometimes you just get beat. Like you're a good team, but there's a better team. And that's kind of what it seems like. So I hope that Bulls fans, even just as a casual fan, I'm still hopeful that they're going to come back to this same spot, because the Bucks are just better and they're not even at full strength. And you're kind of like, okay, you got to shrug.
And that's what I feel about the Bulls is like, I at least just want national folks who haven't watched game in and game out to recognize that there's a difference between this team mid-early season when they were healthy and what happened. Zach got hurt, Caruso got hurt, Ball got hurt, Patrick got hurt. Like, this was a team that was almost never at full strength, but when it was for that initial stretch, and that was with Patrick out, they were fantastic. So everyone, they had a huge swoon. No, they didn't. They were extremely dependent on the guys on the perimeter being able to disrupt, scoring off the transition, scoring off of turnovers, and not relying on Vooch in the middle to be able to shut it down in a traditional half-court defense. When that changed everything. And that's okay. Like, you don't want to have your team be so dependent that when you lose a couple of those role players or a starter in the case of the Bulls, that everything falls apart. But that's kind of how they were constructed. So
yeah, well, and also like everything fall apart. Anytime a starter is out, that's going to hurt any team. And like you were saying, Jordan, it might be like a kind of beginner level analysis, but people always say the better player in the series,
yes,
like
the
team has an automatic
player.
advantage.
Yeah.
I don't think losing to the Bucks I think the way it happened, because the way the season ended and just seeing it now and not being full strength is probably upsetting, but we have a way of getting carried away with our sports emotions. I think that's happening here because that's all that this is. We just get to watch and then either pine for something better or celebrate. And the highs and lows you're not really able to manage them and take that step back and say, well, with all of these things, what did we really expect? So I appreciate that. And I hope next season there's less injury trouble and more longevity and perhaps even a center in the mix.
Center, a little deeper
which
run.
we could transition now and talk about a team that might be losing its center soon. We could talk about the Jazz Mavs series. So Dallas leads 3-2. They won last night, 102-77. That I did not have to check, but I did anyway. I was like 77 has got to be the lowest that Dallas has held an opponent to, and it was all season. Incredibly tough look for both Jazz stars. Donovan was 0 for 7 from 3. He had 9 points total, 4 turnovers, left with that hamstring injury in the fourth quarter. We're supposed to get an update today. He might be announced in, out, whatever during this recording. The MRI is happening today. It was bad before watching him. But with Luka back the last 2 games and you see what's possible from someone, that is, the mirror was not being very kind to Donovan Mitchell. And Gobert, in my opinion, just looks clumsy. And I don't.
The worst.
It's like clumsy and I feel bad for him, but I also don't think the defense is really his fault so much. I think they're having to put him in positions that are unfair to him. I'm old enough to remember when Donovan Mitchell got drafted, and the thing that I kept yelling to everyone because he got drafted so low was, you just wait because his defense is going to come through and be this unexpected, part of his play in addition to like all the fun scoring. And I'm telling you, he's capable of it. He's not giving it. It looks very purposeful. He's just not, he's not there defensively. So, thoughts on this car crash?
Yeah, I mean, what's cool for the Mavs is a team that has historically underperformed in the postseason and has somehow skated from the national criticism of wasting this many years with Luka, is going up against a team that has performed even worse in the postseason and has managed to underperform in incredibly offensive ways. Like you pointed out, the final score, that 36 points in the first half was the lowest all season. So they picked a great time for that. They shot 10% from 3. I went to 3 different sites just in case the first one was wrong. And then maybe the second one was like, that was just the percentage for a quarter. No, for the game, they shot 10% from 3. And I love Donovan Mitchell. He is so fun to watch, but he is going to be very well served by us forgetting that there were only 4 minutes left when he left with injury. Because when the story gets a little fuzzier and people are like, oh yeah, that was the game he had to leave early.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he had a -38 in that game. But remember, he left early. No, he left when they were down like 25 points with only 4 minutes. Like, the game was over. His -38 was secure. That was not like, oh, if he had come back in, he maybe could have made that look a little better. Like, just bad. And to your point, it's been really cool actually to watch, because strategy in the playoffs is really like when the thinking man or woman's basketball fan can really get nerdy. And watching Gobert be a defensive player of the year, runner-up candidate, and then look so exposed by how they are matching him up, how they're pulling him out with Kleba on the perimeter, like the ways that they are making Gobert a liability defensively when he is one of the best defensive players in the league. It's just, it's cool to watch that, the strategy of it all, as ugly as some of the play is. I feel like this team's going to get blown up, and probably rightfully so. And it does make me sad. I admitted the other day, and I was very thankful that many people agreed with me, that I often mix up the Jazz and the Nuggets.
Me too.
I know they're different, and I know the stars that play for them. And if you sit me down, I can tell you about both of them separately. But sometimes when I'm analyzing, my brain just starts talking about statistics from the Nuggets game when I'm supposed to be talking Jazz, or thinking about the Jazz player when I'm talking about the Nuggets. And it's been like that for about 4 years. And I think it's like, predominantly white areas, teams that play well in the regular season based on the superstars, but then underperform in the postseason and always are sort of disappointing, but they aren't covered enough by the national media for us to know enough about them to really distinguish themselves. And I put that out there. It's a very vulnerable moment. And like hundreds of people were like, me too. And
You're not alone. You are not alone.
Better about this. And there were only a few people like geography stands that were like, they're the same distance as like, Florida is to Delaware or whatever. I was like, it's not about that. I can't explain it. But yeah, the Jazz and the Nuggets, it's like the same thing. It's like, are you impressed that they do as much as they do in the regular season, considering how much they fail? Or is it just a constant disappointment that they can't do anything in the postseason?
That's where I'm at too. I feel like it's a trust issue. If you're a Jazz fan, you're like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Even if we get to the playoffs, even if we have a good regular season, you guys are just gonna fumble the bag every single postseason. And with Rudy Gobert, to have this type of game after you make that statement of F that talk, we're going to keep talking about it because it's obvious. And this is what we're going to keep talking about. You guys are bad and Donovan doesn't pass the ball to you and you guys aren't really getting along. That's what I think. So I'm full train ahead. You have to blow this up. I don't think they have another option. We're all looking at it saying this is not going to work. You are probably going to get to this exact same spot in the playoffs next year, and the same thing is going to happen.
So then what do you do, I guess is the question. Which one of them do you trade?
It's got to be Gobert. Yeah, I mean, Donovan Mitchell is your centerpiece. He can create in ways that Gobert can't. What's interesting to me, and I was just thinking about this morning, I like the trend that a couple storylines in this playoffs are offering up. And one of them is the Celtics performing the way they have reminds us that at one point this season, we wanted to break that team up. And we thought that Tatum and Brown couldn't be a viable duo. And now they're disproving that. And I do like patience in the league. Ime Udoka was like, being completely harangued, and now everyone's instead talking about what he's done with this team. I just think patience and waiting it out to see how a coach or a set of players can do is not in vogue and hasn't been for several years now. There's just this quick trigger on it's not working, blow it up, or it's not working, fire them. And there are examples of needing time for things to come together. And I think the Celtics this year are a great example of that. With Utah, I think they've done that for long enough. Or even like with the Blazers. I was so bummed to see CJ get traded because that's my squad. I was bummed when they gave up on Terry Stotts. But I think you kind of sometimes have to just pull the ripcord and be like, all right, we gave it the best we could. We tried enough iterations. And I think that's where the Jazz are. I think Gobert has to go and you figure out who you put with Donovan that can be a playmaker and a creator and that for whatever reason gets along better. I mean, all the rumblings about their relationship doesn't seem like they are going to find each other on some yoga retreat in Utah where they go out into the mountains and realize that they are kindred spirits. I think we tried it all.
Yeah. Jordan, you also think Gobert?
Yeah, that automatically. I think you just have a better shot with Donovan just overall, and I think he would fit better with more players. But yeah, we've given them a lot of chances. It's been a lot of years, and we just come back to the same spot. So I think the Blazers is a great example because you look at CJ and he's blooming. He's having the time of his life. And that was actually, it was holding him back. That situation just wasn't the best situation for him. So maybe Gobert goes and blooms somewhere else. But this, as it's constructed, is not going to work.
Okay, so I actually think you trade Donovan.
Whoa.
I don't think he enjoys being in Utah. I don't even have to say that, like, I've heard that. I think you can see that. He's had multiple like situations over the years where the actual like state of Utah has turned him off, but I also think he's not having a good time on the team. Well, I don't think anyone's having a good time on the team. You have to keep who you think you can best build around in a flexible way. I don't think either of them are centerpieces. I definitely don't think Donovan is. But I think you stand a better chance at building around someone who you know exactly what you're getting out of them, and that's Gobert. You know his shortcomings. With Donovan, it's so game to game, year to year. I think you could also get not maybe more for him, but you could get a cleaner swap.
Oh, you can get more for him for sure. But the question is Gobert anyone to build around?
I don't think you're building around him. That's the thing. You're still blowing
He's
it up.
Just a part of it.
Exactly. And I think if you keep Donovan, you have the guys that you're building around somebody that you should not. Like, because the real
so you just
galaxy
don't see
brain
him as a
here,
1A. You don't see Donovan as a 1A.
No, I don't. And I think that that's kind of like, not to compare him to Andrew Wiggins, because he's in my mind already accomplished like miles more, but I think he thrives when you take him out of that position, asking him to be that 1A. The galaxy brain thing here, though, you trade them both.
Whoa.
I know. But at this point, the amount you could get, Sarah, think about the teams that are desperate for centers.
Right.
Think about the teams that would like see Donovan as that missing piece, because they've already got so much more. We have so many teams right now that are very young and want to add a complement that could bring a spark of scoring, that could bring a little bit of, like, I guess it might be too premature to call him veteran intelligence, but he has been in the playoffs. Like, he has seen this stuff before. I think he is more tradable for multiple reasons, but I think having Gobert as like a sturdy post there, and again, you're not building around him, but he is a piece. You still have him there. You know exactly what he is. I would not be so inclined to trade a known commodity, whereas Donovan, to me, and I love Donovan Mitchell, Louisville legend, has been flighty, and I think in a way that is a direct result of where he's at.
I'm just looking.
The defense is so telling. It's so telling. Like, watch him. That's effort.
The trying.
It's not. He can play defense.
I'm just looking at at Basketball Reference at their payroll. They've got 11 players signed through next season. They've got 7 through 23-24, and then Gobert and Mitchell are the only players on the books after that. They've got both of those guys through 25-26. So right now, Gobert is still owed a guaranteed $158 million plus, and Donovan Mitchell is owed a guaranteed $125 million plus. So you got to find a trade partner that wants them. And, you know, sometimes in the case of a team that really feels like they could build, they'll look at that longevity of that contract and think, okay, if we make this deal, that means we have the rights to them for this amount of time. That'll give us enough time to, you know, bring them into the system and build around them. But that's a lot of money. And so making a trade work when there's that much money, you know how, I mean, that's where I check out. Like you said earlier, know yourself. When people get into NBA deals and they're like, well, then you got to have matching salaries. And then this is a right. And then this is I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Like,
no, that's when we check out too. I'm like, that's somebody's job. People are paid for that. I'm not paid for that.
Hey, you guys tell me if this works.
Yeah, tell me if it works.
I'm simply a man offering ideas.
Involved.
I'm just giving you guys the inspiration. Like, you make the money work, because that's not my job.
Yeah. So whenever people get into like on Twitter all the time, people will be like, what do you think of this trade? I'll be like, no effing clue. I'm just going to be honest with you. I have no idea if that would even be allowed or if it would work, or like what players you'd have to throw in just for money reasons. Like, so I do think that those contracts and that guaranteed money, but you're right. I mean, there are teams in need of these players. I just think, boy, if you're going to tell that Utah fan base that's rabid and passionate, we're going to get rid of both of them. You better
build around Jordan Clarkson.
You better be bringing in something to get excited about.
Right. Because that's the thing about giving up players in a city like that, you can't be nonchalant about it because
you're not
also
getting,
they do
no one's
not
choosing.
come in.
Yeah,
Right.
no one's
You have
choosing
to bring
Utah.
them in. You have to
Exactly.
draft them. You have to trade for them. But right now, it's not working. I say trade
Right.
Donovan. I think you get
And
more
to
for him.
address the
He'd be
elephant in the
happier.
room. Who are the
Yes.
stars that would be happy in Utah? Because you mentioned Donovan not being happy there.
Well,
Luka.
Gordon Hayward was very happy
Name
there.
other
Hayward,
other white people. I mean,
Grayson
I
Allen.
hate to like put it out like that, but like, there's a reason why some people aren't happy in Utah.
Yeah, Luka. Jokic, maybe.
Jokic, yeah, just then really screw me up. Just start trading Jazz and Nuggets players just to further mind F me, so I can't remember which team is which.
The big distinction between those two for me is that it's not the Nuggets' fault. I've always thought like poor Nuggets because of the injuries, and Jokic overperforming, almost setting like too high a bar.
I think it's not Jokic's fault. I tried to flip the narrative the other day on Around the Horn because the question was about them, what a failure in the postseason. And instead I was like, or do we underestimate exactly how much Jokic does to drag an entire team on his back to a great regular season record? Like, we all marveled this year during the MVP conversations. We're like, Jokic is leading the team in all 8 major categories. We were like, amazing. And then I was like, excuse me, just a quick question. Do we think it's a good thing when one player leads your team in assists, points, rebounds, like all of the
exhausted
things? Like that just screams to me roster construction fail.
Yeah.
Not because someone can't be great, but you should not be leading the team in every single major statistical category and all of the advanced statistics. That's a sign that your team does not have enough depth to actually do something, which is what happens every postseason. They got to get him some help. And injuries wise, you're absolutely right. I mean, clearly, doing all this without Murray, doing all this without the supporting guys that would make this team great is a huge part of it. So it's not the same story, or I guess reasons for the Jazz and Nuggets to underperform, but they still end up in the same place.
Yeah, Jokic is giving 2017 MVP Russell Westbrook statistics. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a roster construction issue, and I feel bad for him. I will say though, all-time low when you got to pull out your MVP for a defensive possession.
That'll happen.
We are going to take a break, and then we are going to talk about another epic collapse, which is the Philadelphia 76ers and the team that is besting them, the Toronto Raptors.
One quick thing. Have you guys seen, because this is very near where we're recording, Kevin Durant's Instagram posts over the last hour and a half?
Okay, I have.
Can we look at? Oh my God, I haven't.
I have.
Gotta look at
I
this.
gotta say, and we can be back on the podcast for this. I saw this on the rundown. Like, I just don't. I've stopped caring. Like, my tolerance for the Nets is like, okay, see you next season. Like, I don't care anymore. It's. He posted Chuck.
Yeah.
Because I think Chuck was saying something rude to him, and Chuck doesn't have any rings. So with Kevin Durant, you know what? Let's see how far the Celtics go. I think that they are going to do the same thing to every team they face.
Yeah.
This is coming from a person who was like, I don't think the Celtics are going to be able to handle anyone with a real center. That's definitely not, like, blah, blah, blah. In January and February. Astonishing. I think the real angle I want to take here is instead of, and I also don't really want to talk about the Nets because I'm a little tired of it, but for me, it's been, instead of like, I can't believe KD's playing like this. I've never, ever seen him play like this.
Yeah.
In his whole career, right? Because that's what everyone was saying. We were all saying. There's probably a reason, and that reason is probably the Celtics defense. So I'd rather give them the credit for it, for suffocating and totally demoralizing them and making them look like commonplace role players than to say like Kevin Durant is declining. Right. His career's over. Do I think that he could break through and do more? Yes, but I'm deciding to think that the majority of that is this credit to the Celtics defense rather than him. My main takeaway from that Instagram post is I really want this Gucci hat that is in one of his posts. It's
That
so
is
pretty.
amazing.
Is it a beret? And is it on a small child?
No,
I couldn't tell from that
it's on a
photo.
woman who I'm not
She's
able to
just
identify.
looks like
at
a child
this point.
next to him because he's
Yeah,
tall.
she's so
Okay.
short.
All right.
That's a great.
I could not pull off that hat, so I'm gonna leave that to
I
you.
have too much hair.
I agree with you. I will say this much. As a superstar player, you can get bottled up defensively and still be more effective. I look at, for instance, that first game of the Grizzlies T-Wolves series when Ja Morant was off his game and still managed to end up with a triple-double. He just made hustle plays. He found his way into mucking things up to help his team. And I think Kevin Durant, we saw, I don't know if they were in his head or what, but he was not aggressive. You cannot solely credit the Celtics if he doesn't take a shot for the last 11 minutes of a game. Like you gotta find a way to get the ball in his hands and at least make them work for it. And I do think you give a ton of credit to the Celtics for their defense, but I think what I said, and I think it sums it up, is like in the micro, this team might have survived this series if Kevin Durant went off every night. But what we saw last night was a great game from them and they still didn't win. And that's the flawed roster depth and that's the flawed defense. Like we've talked about this for the last 2 years with the Nets. Like if they were to ever win it, it would be like a Herculean feat because teams with their defensive rating never win at all. They can't defend across 48 minutes. That's been every game of this series has been mostly close. And then the Celtics blow it out down the stretch because they can't keep up defensively. The Nets can't, but
yeah. And this whole, just like you're painting, this whole season was a dumpster fire. Like they weren't supposed to win. It would have been wild if they actually pulled this through with all of the drama, with the trades, with everything. I didn't think they would get swept, but it wasn't supposed to. They weren't supposed to make it through. And just like what I said earlier about a team getting beat, that Boston defense, we have to sing its praises. They were there. Kyrie was in his bag. Handles still there. Like their defense, the switching, it was amazing to see. I just wanted every youth basketball player to be like, watch this defense. They're putting on a clinic. And it's weird to be like, wow, defense wins games. Right. Defense might win championships. I feel like it's so throwback to even say that. But the Celtics look great and the Nets did not. And now KD is upset about that.
And now he's posting
he's posting
in his
on
feels
his story.
on his Insta. By the way, did you see the clip floating around of them guarding Kevin during a timeout? It's so good.
Wait, was it Grant Williams?
I can't remember. Was it Grant Williams? Yeah.
I did.
So literally, like timeout has been called. KD's like holding the ball and walking with it. It's quite clear that the game is not still underway, and Grant Williams is still defending him and won't let him just like flip in that last, like fun shot on his way to the bench. It's so good.
That's a little bit what I mean about, I don't think that I don't know why some of the reasons for people saying what's up with Kevin Durant isn't just like the Celtics defense. They successfully got in his head. And he should, because of what a player he is, have risen above that. But it should be a testament to the defense.
I think there's credit
Not
for
100%,
the defense. I think there's a lot of credit to the defense. It's just that you don't get to be one of the greatest players of all time, superstar, and be foiled that easily.
Yeah, you're right.
Like the greats find a way or become such incredible facilitators. And part of that, again, roster construction, you're looking for someone else. But he also seemed to shirk the responsibility in games 2 and 3. It wasn't just I'm having an off night. It was, okay, I'll stop shooting and stop driving. And I do wonder if there's an injury at play.
It was
bizarre.
Weird. It was love seeing his passing. But yeah, it was very, very, very jarring to see him be a pass first more often.
So let me ask you this. If he's on his Instagram story right now, he didn't post the pictures of Charles Barkley, and he's saying, wow, Celtics, you played amazing defense. And he's giving them that credit and kind of admitting to that a little bit of like, that defense was so great. Like it got me out of my game. I was off my game. And he admitted that. Would we respect that more, or would we be like, still 100%. You're a superstar? It wouldn't matter.
We would still expect something out of him, but I think that that's a better, like, what's the clap back to that? it's going to be the same you would get anyway. Like, oh, well, you still should have played better or you suck or whatever. But it's not the same as let me go out and lash out at other people because I'm in my feels and I'm frustrated with my team. Like then you're going to get commentary about how soft he is. He's a cupcake. He's fragilely sensitive versus like, I had to be better. Shout out to the Celtics D for like bottling it up. Just didn't have my A game. Then what are you going to say back to that? You're right. You did it.
Pride. What a thing.
Can we talk about the biggest loser of the playoffs the last 2 games?
Glenn
which
Taylor?
is Doc Rivers.
Oh, okay.
Doc Rivers.
Okay, well, Philly still technically leads, although it doesn't feel like it.
Right.
3-2. Toronto won last night, 103-88. Depending on which side of the fence you were on, it was very fun to watch. So now Toronto goes back home with a chance to do something that has never happened in the playoffs before, which is come back from a 3-0 deficit. Has never happened, which makes sense because we know very well the history of the NBA playoffs because of the big deal it was when the Warriors lost to the Cavs in 2016. Everybody like told us what has and has not happened to death. But yes, this would be very fun. It's happened in all the other major American sports that go to 7. And coming back from this against the Sixers, the only thing that would make it not feel good is that this is something that almost feels expected of the Sixers and specifically of Doc Rivers. He has a history of this. He's the only coach in NBA history to blow 3-1 series leads. One of those was with the Clippers in 2020, and then the next year he was with the Sixers. And we all remember what happened last year. He lost to the Hawks in the second round, including 3 losses at home. And there is really no home court advantage like the Raptors after 2 years of not really being able to go to Raptors games. Like Raptors fans, even when they get to go to every single regular season game, are very intense. They fill up that little pin. I don't remember what it's called, and I don't mean to call it little. The giant area.
Size matters. Okay?
Yeah, I think it's like named after a dinosaur. I don't know what it is, but it is intense every single time. When they won, that looked like the best
Were you
party
saying
to be
pen,
at.
like PEN?
Pin, like a pen, like an area.
Okay, I thought you said, but it's your accent. I thought you said a pin, and I didn't know what the hell you were talking about. I think you're talking about like Jurassic Park or whatever they call
Jurassic Park. Yeah, the pen. Yeah, the classic swap out for the E for the I. Beings. Yeah, there's a reason that
a small pin. I've never seen
an area. Yeah, Jurassic Park. I knew it was fucking called something. Anyway, Doc has lost 7 of his last opportunities to clench out series.
Are you saying Pam or Pan? Sorry, go ahead.
It's very the other day I was on a phone call and we had the get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we had to sort out the get. Yeah, so
you're doing great.
I guess is Doc gonna get her done? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No.
This was going around this morning. Doc Rivers record: 2003, 3 games to 1 blown lead. 2009, 3 games to 2 blown lead. 2010, 3 games to 2 blown lead. 2012, 3 games to 2 blown lead. 2015, 3 games to 1 blown lead. 2020, 3 games to 1 blown lead. His record in the games that matter most: Game 6, 10 wins, 15 losses. Game 7, 6 wins, 9 losses, 5 of those at home. So, yeah, when you put together the inevitability of the Sixers disappointing and the process never coming to fruition with the inevitability of a Doc Rivers playoff collapse with 3 wins.
Seems like
it's
a
not
perfect
looking
storm
good
to me.
Not looking good.
It's just a perfect cocktail of like things that would set up things that have brought playoff hopes down before, which is Embiid being injured. He's got a torn ligament in his thumb that they cannot fix until after the season. His defense has really, really, really suffered from it. There was that point in the third quarter where there were like 7 straight possessions that the Raptors blatantly went at him. Shout out to Precious. Like, he really capitalized on that. And every single time something happened, they either went to the line, had a dunk, had layups, multiple layups. So that's one, right? Let's make that like the bitters muddled on the bottom.
Oh, we're making a drink. Okay.
We're making a cocktail. Number 2, James Harden in the playoffs. Just we could stop there.
Stop right there. He forgets how to basketball.
Just like, for some reason, cannot shoot well. And again, I don't want to discredit. I know that this is like right now a Sixers heavy conversation. A lot of this is credit to the Raptors. But I don't know that the Sixers couldn't beat themselves. So that's number 2. Number 3 is Doc Rivers, and Embiid said this after the game on Harden taking only 11 shots. He said, "I've been saying all season since he got here, he needs to be aggressive and he needs to be himself. That's not really my job. That's probably on coach to talk to him and tell him to take more shots." So
just falling apart.
Do you guys remember day 2 of James Harden with the Sixers, and Joel Embiid was like, "I don't know what all you guys have been talking about. He's great.
Yep.
He's in shape. He works hard. He has a great personality. We're so happy he's here." And I was like, somebody write this down for cold takes, old takes exposed. Like, this is how it always happens until James doesn't want to be there anymore. And then he fakes fat, goes to strip clubs and demands a trade. And this is like the inevitable march to the next team that becomes just discouraged with what they see. And particularly this time, because his play used to save him from himself, not in the end of playoff runs. That was always the issue, right? He set like a playoff record for turnovers and missed threes and everything else. But his play always was enough. He's like a quarterback with a huge arm. Like, enough people are going to keep taking chances on you because you have that. But he doesn't have that anymore. He can't beat guys off the dribble. He's struggling to create his own shots. He's never had a great 3-point percentage, but he's been able to shoot well enough from there to offset everything else. He doesn't have that right now.
And often enough.
Yeah. And what we've seen is great as a facilitator, but that's not the role on this team that you need, particularly if Embiid is going to be less aggressive because of his finger. You need to be a scorer. He's only had, I think, 3 30-point games this year, this calendar year. And that's not the guy that you thought you were getting. So, man, I mean, I feel for Embiid looking around and being like, dang, another part of the process that's going to let me down. I got Ben Simmons like passing on wide open dunks, and I got James Harden who's just going to show up and try to facilitate his way to like 15 points, a bunch of turnovers, and not being good enough.
Yeah.
I think it's also in his head. I think he's also like, it's the playoffs. This is just not where I do well. I think we have to, we're talking about guys being sensitive and knowing themselves. I think he's like, wait, I'm healthy. This is kind of weird. Now I'm expected to do something and I'm not doing it. And it's just not looking good. But that's a perfect cocktail that we have created.
Yeah, did we finish the cocktail?
Collab.
Is there like a
garnish?
A garnish, like a lemon or a lime?
Well, okay, so we'll make Doc the alcohol, since I think he's the most potent thing, like really destroying everything. Harden will be like the soda.
Right.
And
It should be doing more than it is. Yeah.
Right. And then I'll say the Raptors. Like, the Raptors have a great story, great energy. They can genuinely, more than anybody else in the playoffs, maybe the Wolves, but anybody in the East for sure, say we are and have always been the underdogs. Even after we won a championship, people shit on us.
Right.
Yeah.
People
never believed in Pascal.
They have the added home advantage of quite literally preventing other teams from bringing their full roster.
Yes,
we
have
not talked
go.
about this enough.
That's the garnish to me.
That's the garnish.
He can't even play.
The added twist is like, you you cannot cross our borders. That is shut down defense. Like, you literally can't even make it to the game, not to mention to add anything to the box score.
I will
We're not
say,
talking about that
too,
enough.
this is kind of a Doc thing, but also a Thibault thing. So if you're not aware, Thibault's not vaccinated. He cannot go to Canada for any of their games. But this is, let's take this like more holistically at the Sixers home games, too. Doc has played his regular starting lineup, one that was considered one of the best in the minutes that it played in the regular season. You have to say in the minutes it played, not all season, because Harden was included, and that is Harden, Maxey, Thibault, Tobias, and Embiid. A whopping 20 possessions the entire series. So that is a major issue. I don't know if he is trying to come up with more flexible things since he is anticipating Thibault not being able to participate in half the games, or if he has memory loss, or I don't know like what would make him do this. Also, I want to say, while we were making fun of me saying pen and pin, my aunt texted me and told me that when I'm done recording, there are collard greens, pulled pork, and chicken salad down there for me. So
are you at your aunt's house, or do you live with your aunt?
Yes, I've been staying with my aunt for an extended period of time, and it has been honestly such a joyous wonderful. We're out in the country. Actually, I have had to so I have my dog with me, and I forgot how bad ticks were. I'm just like pulling ticks off her left and right because she's just like running around. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So gross. So you gotta give the dog like a full body massage every night and be feeling for him. What kind of dog is it? Long hair?
Well, we cut her hair real short because after I found the first one, but she's a mix. I'm not sure what she is. She's like a probably majority wire-haired terrier, so she's got to had to get it cut short.
Perfect.
But yeah, a lot of country things happening over here.
Do you live near like Sophie Cunningham or?
Don't do this, Sarah.
I just wasn't sure. I forget where she's from.
She's from Missouri.
From the country or not.
I'm from Kentucky. I think that she was from she was the big fish in the small pond.
Okay.
Dentist family.
Dentist. We should look that up.
We don't know that for
sure.
Should
fact check that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Anyway, how do you fix this? Do you fix this? Is it just a matter of like Embiid's fucking hurt?
I mean, I'm not giving James Harden a freaking max, and that's the main issue. Daryl Morey has got himself in this mess. This is like his longtime love.
Yeah.
That he will keep pursuing no matter how many times he hurts him. Toxic. And now you're in a situation where you're going to give him. Talk about a player who is going to have a precipitous decline. We are watching it happen already, but man, when James Harden, because he does not have, I don't want to say he doesn't have love for the game. I think he loves basketball. I don't know that he cares that much about legacy or his teammates. Because if you cared, I don't think you'd be quite as willing to be in the first year of a 4-year max and then force your way out and not show up. I don't think you'd be mid-season with a team like the Nets that had high expectations and just be like, I don't want to be here anymore. So I think my hamstring hurts, right? I think that we've seen too many times where he's prioritized himself over his team and his reputation, that if he's out and he's not feeling it, man, is that going to look ugly on the court.
Yeah.
Physically and mentally. So I'm Kyrie, Harden, these teams have a big decision to make, and I'm not touching either one of those guys with a max.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Jordan, what do you think?
I think just like how we were talking about, like, it's on Doc Rivers. Like, we have to circle this trend, and the fact that he has had grace. Like, we have all of those stats, and we've seen this trend happening, but we still, keep singing his praises sometimes, and he gets these big jobs with the Sixers team, and knowing that they needed a coach, they needed something to put them over the edge. Doc Rivers' number was called, and he's still doing it again. If the Sixers lose this series, we have to shine a flashlight, a spotlight on Doc Rivers and really look at, okay, is he a good coach? Why does he keep being hired? This is not going to look good. You talk about legacy. This is not going to look good for Doc Rivers, and we can't ignore that. I agree with you about James Harden. I agree that Embiid's hurt, Thibault, all of that stuff. But Doc Rivers, he's alcohol. He is the main part of this, and we can't.
It's supposed to be a gin and tonic, and we used Malort by mistake, and now everything's gone awry. I do think Doc Rivers is very liked and very respected. He is a strong voice in the league on social issues. He's someone that people get along with really well, and I think if he were not social and likable and forthright in his convictions on things off the court, he probably wouldn't have gotten so many opportunities. If he were kind of just a surly, unlikable dude, this would have caught up to him. But I think all of that sort of muddles, that's a drinking term. I'm stuck on cocktails. Muddies the waters when it comes to people's perception of him and what he's been able to accomplish or not.
Yeah, and my fiance and I were just talking about this last night. We're torn because he is one of those black coaches that has continued to get second chances, and we fight for that, and we want that for other coaches. And Doc is like the poster child of like, yes, you are the one that keeps getting these chances, but now you gotta win, and you can't blow these leads. And so we're torn in that aspect because he is fighting for justice. He is outspoken. He is kind of this father figure around the league. But you gotta get some W's, and this is not looking good for him.
Yeah. Or, this is, for me, I'm like, dude, you could always just go golf. You love to golf. You could retire and go golf.
Hang it up. Yeah.
At what point is it too disgraceful an exit? I don't know. We have a short-term memory with these things. Predictions for Wednesday, or I guess where it's Tuesday night. I don't know if I want to do that. Then we could immediately have people say that we were wrong.
You like to prolong, but maybe people will forget by Wednesday what we said. Tonight is too soon.
You know what I'm really interested in is Wolves Grizzlies. Who do you guys have? Flash. You can give like 5 words as an explanation, but who do you have tonight? It is back in Memphis, and I'm taking Memphis because back home in Memphis.
Yep, that was key. I was
ditto. That was gonna swing on. Yeah. This is a wild ass series, though. For all the criticism of the T-Wolves for blowing 2 25-point leads, I'm also like, ahem, why are the Grizzlies getting down by 25 points multiple times in a game against this lower seed? Like, this has been a wild series. And that's not even including all the protests and the crazy other things.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
So I got Grizzlies.
I have Memphis home crowd. I think it's going to be another dramatic event of either they're going to be up, they're going to be down, it's going to be close. It's been so fun to watch. It's like a saga.
Yes. Shout out to the Chicago Sky. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. Season starts in 10 days, right?
That's right. Yep.
So close.
Championship defense begins.
You'll have to come back on to talk about them.
Yeah.
Happier things.
You know, what are you going to do? You got to stop the existing squad, and then we added another finals MVP and Emma Meeseman.
3 finals MVPs. 3 finals MVPs.
That's right.
That's wild. Oh, it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
What's up, y'all? This is Misha. I'm calling from Virginia, and my question for y'all, I want to know, who is y'all's top NBA trash talker of all time? And I'll tell you who mine is. Mine has to be unequivocally Trae Young. This dude is 2 foot nothing. He's a bucket. You cannot deny it. and he's just always under somebody's skin. Like, he doesn't stop. He's consistent. And the thing I love the most about him is you can tell he loves it. He loves it so much. He loves being am I allowed to say asshole? He loves being an asshole. I can say asshole, right? Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Bye, guys.